Hello again, and welcome to another episode of No Prize Podcast. I am your host, the Professor Bud Young, and with me Johnny is gone this week, so we have he who shall not be nicknamed and seen this week. Lucas, how are you, Lucas?
Hey, what's going on? This week I'm gonna be called the Nameless, and we'll get into that of why.
The Nameless. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Go copyright gimmick infringement with the he who shall not be named. So, nickname. So tell us about Nameless.
So the Nameless. So I guess we'll get into. Do you want to get into books, or do you want to get into something else right now?
Yeah, I mean, so we're really happy to be back this week with brand new books to finally be solicited that we could talk about. I know the last couple of months we've really haven't had anything to talk about, just speculation. But we actually have books in our hands this week, and or digitally, and it's going to be really fun to kind of talk about what's coming up and maybe really kind of what is going to get left on the wayside, right?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
they've
Right.
kind
Right.
of I even said this a couple of days ago that Marvel is back, but they're back with a whimper, because they came back and we're used to getting 22 to 25 books a week out of Marvel, and last week we got 4 books, and this week we get 5. And even then, the first week when they came back last week was, what kind of books are these? We have Hawkeye,
Exactly.
and
Ironheart.
uh, right.
Ironheart.
So
Right. Right. So so those books were like low run books that people weren't really sure they were going to read anyway, which was perfect for them, right? So if there's no other books to push out, go ahead and push out those books that have a low run that you're not quite sure if anybody has an interest, but it is part of a storyline because especially I'm not sure about the Hawkeye, but I know that Ironheart that was part of that Iron Man 2020.
yeah,
So that one was that whole thing was good to pick up on. It kind of reminded me of what was going on in parts of the Marvel universe, which brought me back to some of the stuff that was happening in this week. So it was good the way they kind of ordered it. I think they did a good job of that.
yeah, and we'll get into the books in a few minutes about you know I guess it's been a couple of months. So when I picked up those books and started flipping through, and I'm like, oh, I don't even remember what happened in the last issue. And I think there was one book that we're going to talk about that actually did a pretty good recap.
Yes. Mhm.
So, um, but all the rest of the books, I was like, okay, I have to kind of jump right in and try to figure out exactly what happened the last time. Um, I'm used to about 3 or 4 weeks in between books, not like 10.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
um, but let me get into this, and I figured this out a little earlier. Um, and so we have books that aren't being solicited. We just had September 2020 solicitations come out, so that's 3 months from now. So that's a regular solicitation schedule, and there are books that were either solicited or on the schedule to be released this month or next month, and they're nowhere to be found. And
Sure.
and I guess what we don't know is when and if these books are going to be coming out, whether or not they're going to be digital or in print, because I guess that's kind of be like what's happening now is you're going to get a lot more books coming out exclusively digitally.
Sure.
Um,
Yep.
and so I mean, I'm just looking at this book, these books that are solicited. Children of the Atom was pretty much solicited, ready to come
Yes.
out, right? Not on
Yep.
the
Mhm.
schedule at all.
Really.
Yep.
Okay.
Strike Force, Runaways, Arrow, Swordmaster, Morbius, Black Panther,
Ooh.
the Doctor Doom book, uh, Savage Avengers. A lot of these books that, Ms. Marvel, all these books through September not solicited to come out, and a lot of this the new Champions book, um, and that's just a taste. There's literally, I think, 50 books on this list, and other books that were not solicited for June or July: Ghost Rider, Daredevil, Miles
Mhm.
Morales, Strange Academy that we talked about on the last podcast, New Mutants. Doctor Strange, Agents of Wakanda. All these books. Amazing Mary Jane, not on August 2020 solicits, and Cosmic Ghost Rider. So a lot of these books, I think,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, and then the list of digital only books so far. And these are the books that we saw last week: Hawkeye Freefall, digital only; the Ironheart 2020 book, digital only; Ghost Spider has gone digital; Ant-Man,
Really?
yep. Of the Black Cat Strikes book that we got last week, that's just digital.
Wow.
Um, Avengers of the Wasteland, that was a book I think that you liked, um, digital only. So they're not going to be printed. So that's interesting stuff on how Marvel is choosing to kind of come back, right? Uh,
Right.
and what's not on the list at all? That
So,
new Warriors book that got killed on Twitter.
yeah,
That
yeah,
new
yeah.
new
Good.
Warriors book is gone. So, uh,
Good.
yeah,
Good.
right. So that's I think interesting stuff. And I know that we talked like a month ago about, well, like what Marvel maybe kind of reels back in, you know,
Yeah.
and decides not to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I
So
thought it was
so yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So I got two thoughts on that, man, because that first list that you ran off, those are ones that um, it's not that they're low print, but it's something where they each have their own little niche
Yeah.
customers, right?
Hmm.
Those are, I can't freaking remember all the titles off the top of my head, but they
Yeah.
have their own little niche customers. They have their own little niche readers. Hey, I want to do this. I'm okay. That second list, you read off Black Cat, Cosmic Ghost Riders. Those are ones that Marvel loves to put out those variant covers for, right?
Yep.
So you always have like a 1 in 25, you always have a 150, 1 in 100. So for them to go digital only, wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
Because they're kind of sacrificing those variants, right?
So that's definitely very interesting. Um, and maybe it's attention to, hey, they thought that they were helping out the stores by putting out those incentive variants when the exact opposite is true, because I guess what they think is, if a store gets those incentive variants, then the store gets to sell those incentive variants at a higher price and get their money back on um, any other comic books that they don't sell. But it doesn't really work out that way sometimes. Sometimes it screws the store over, especially if the customer ends up not picking up the freaking book.
So
So yeah.
I guess a question, Lucas, maybe I have for you, because you're the I'm going into the comic book store and I'm trying to find those variants and whatever. Uh, so Marvel and DC, I'm sure, uh, when we talk about this switch to digital, and I really kind of think the industry has kind of been heading that way for a long, long time. But with this pandemic, um, does Marvel and DC decide that the only books they're going to actually print copies of, like actual copies you can hold in your hand, the the major books like the Spider-Man, the Captain Americas, the Avengers, Superman, Batman, and then everything else they're going to experiment with digitally to save
Right.
money. I mean,
Yeah, that would make sense for them. But here's the deal, because what was interesting is I got this new computer and I had the notifications turned on, right? So anytime
yeah,
I get an email from certain people or certain whatever, it's freaking going all crazy. Within the last week, my email thing was going off crazy from these mom and pop stores that were licensing their own little variants, right? So that's
really,
what DC and Marvel, yeah, that's what DC and Marvel want to do. Yeah, go ahead and pull back on selling those hard copies. But if those mama pops want to do their own little personalized variants, go ahead sell that to them, right? Because sometimes what it costs maybe like $2,000 to $3,000, and then on top of that, the store still has to hire the artist to get to do the art or whatever. Or sometimes Marvel, DC, they'll do all the work up front for them and say, hey, we got this, but if you want, go ahead and pay this amount, and and that's how it works. So you got like Sad Lemon, Big Time Collectibles, 789 Comics. They do a lot of those. And my thing was going crazy all this week. I mean, and all this week for stuff that for like little indie comic books you never heard of, and Marvel comic books, and even last week, in the last 2 weeks, when there was not a lot of stuff coming out, it was still going crazy for all these comics that they were still selling these store or retailer variants for. So I think that's what they should do, right? Instead of selling 20 different freaking comic books, right? Because you still got the A and B, right? Go ahead, let the retailers decide which covers they want. If they want it, then we can boom, right? Because if I hear off the grapevine, that's usually what happens. If I hear off the grapevine, hey, Delato or Francesco Martina or Diodato, hey, they've got some freaking great piece of art out there, and I hear that my store might be having ends to getting that on a particular piece of comic, then guess what? I'm gonna freaking hit up that retailer, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm in that retailer, talking to them, and getting in a good relationship with those guys. So that's what they should do, man. Instead of spending these millions and thousands of dollars and wrapping up the retailer, because another bad part about it is that a part of the whole diamond contract with some of these stores is they have to buy a certain amount of comics um, per month in order to keep their account in the black or the red, and
Right.
that's bad. It's a shame, and especially with what's going on because they close, and
Yeah.
because here's the way I roll, right? If I just go down to the Midtown or the whatever website, I just get what I want, and that's it. But but here's what happens when I actually go inside the store. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to get these three comics. I see stuff that's on the freaking shelf. Next thing I know, I'm walking out with 38. That's
Yeah.
just the way I am. 38 plus freaking some toys and T-shirts and freaking game stuff. So um, that's just the way it is, and that's what's bad for the mom and pop stores. And I hope that there's a way around this. And I think the whole retailer variant is the way to go. Um, to include, you know, there's also those retailer summits that happen every once in a while, where with the retailers that go to listen to Diamond or they go to listen to DC and see what's going on, what's going to happen within the next year. Sometimes what happens is, like Marvel, DC, or Diamond, they'll put out a special retailer variant on their seats. Like, hey, thanks for coming out, guys. Here's that. Sometimes that comic by itself will be $1,000, right? Once they
Wow.
freaking get back, right? And then
Hmm.
they get back and they sell it for $500, $600. They sell it to me, and freaking we go crazy over it, right? We can't freaking wait, and we love our little baby because sometimes there's only 500 or 200. In fact, some of the comic books that we're going to talk about today, they were meant for those retailer summits, and there's only 3,000 um, printed.
Wow.
So, but because there's no more summits because they canceled those summits, now they're just releasing it to everybody, and
Huh.
then they're available just us out there. So whoever's listening to this is going to want to go ahead and pay attention, and freaking see if they can get their hands on it because they're really really cheap. I was surprised, but they're out there right now.
Wow. All right. So let's get into some of the books that came out this week. Well, we're going to touch probably all of them, right? So we have time. We have time to talk about what exactly came out. Um, so let's get into the first book on our list here. Let's get into Amazing Spider-Man number 43. Um,
God,
uh, all right. So
Gog, Gog want to play.
So we have Amazing Spider-Man number 43. It's the part three of a True Companions story, written by Nick Spencer with pencils by Ryan Ollie, with actually the regular creative crew on Amazing Spider-Man. We have inks by Cliff Rathburn and Ryan Ollie, with colorists Nathan Fairbairn and D. Cuniff, and letterers VC's Joe Caramagna. So the this book is the third part, like I said. So Gog, who is one of those big Marvel monsters, he's attacking New York City, and it's up to Spider-Man and his faithful sidekick Boomerang to stop him. And they've been on the couple of issues now. Boomerang's been looking for the Lifeline tablet, and they don't really do a good job in kind of catching us up on exactly what the heck that is. This issue, but let's say Boomerang gets the tablet, and we don't know exactly what he is going to do with it. But the big story here is Giant Gog going through the city, and it turns into a game of fetch where Boomerang throws his boomerang and Gog wants to catch it like faithful dog. And then at the end, we're reminded that the last time Gog appeared, he was shrunk down with Pym particles, and he could probably still have that power if he wants to shrink, which is exactly what he does. He shrinks so that he can catch the boomerang, and then he ends up as the household pet for Peter and his and Fred. As is Fred Myers, right? That's his that boomerang's name. And they take the this tiny Gog pet, and now they're watching movies and eating popcorn on the couch. This issue for me, and that's all that happens in this issue, other than that last page tease of the Sin Eater coming back. That this book is a gigantic clobber for me, man. There's nothing else happened other than Boomerang threw Gog a boomerang, and then they end up with Gog as a household pet. Which, first of all, if you're Peter Parker and Spider-Man, do you really want to have a gigantic or a tiny monster living with you?
Right. Well, I mean, they put the little bracelet or whatever around or collar around his neck that supposedly stifles that ability to get big or something like that.
Still.
So, but of course, it's going to get broken. It's a monkey. It's going to be jumping around. It's probably going to eventually break it. So,
and you know, they've got three dudes living in an apartment in Manhattan, and you know, who knows? They probably have a no pets rule. Just saying. I just thought this, you know, was I like Nick Spencer's writing when he writes, because he writes Spider-Man, the wisecracky comedy type Spider-Man that I kind of like. He's pretty good at that, but this is kind of going off the rails a little bit for me. There's just like nothing. Like I said, nothing happens here. There's not, you know, Spider-Man's Peter Parker for like 2 pages. Kingpin shows up and does really kind of nothing. It's a, like I said, when Marvel came back with a whimper, this is the kind of book we come back for. Give me the Lee Ditko 1960s Spider-Man that I've been reading the last 2 months. Give me that any day over the current stuff. And I might be jaded now because I've been spending 2 months in the 1960s now. But this is really not what I wanted to come back for. So I don't. So what did you think about it, Lucas?
well, I'll tell you what. Off the bat, I'm more impressed with the art. I did like the art.
Yes.
The art was pretty good. There was a bunch of panels that I was like, man, those could have been even great for just the cover, right? You know, there was one where Spider-Man is main into the panel, and then the webs are just going off the panels and all types of different ways. Those were freaking great. Even when they blew up Gog and they showed the massive scale that he had over some of the buildings, that was great as well. But then when it came down to it, he's destroying the buildings, but then after everything that's happened, nothing happened, like you said, right? So he just destroyed a whole bunch of buildings. He destroyed the city street, but now the city's going to allow him to have him as a pet inside of his apartment building. Whatever. But I get where they were going with it. They're trying to hit you with the emotionality. Get you emotional. Like, hey, blah, blah, blah. But this is not the one. The most that I got out of it is, hey, uh, there's a spider monkey thing going on, right? That's all he is. He's Peter Parker's pet spider monkey. That's all I'm getting right now. Um, I think this is more for the kids. This is one that, if the kids are bored, you go pay your money, freaking give it to your kid. And that's why there wasn't even any variants like there usually is for Spider-Man and Pete Parker. So this is just for the kids. Hey, little Johnny, we go ahead and read this, have fun, and then call it a day. This is not really for the adults hoping to see wide ranging and wide scaling stuff. And I was definitely like you. They probably should have added a recap. Hey, this is what's been happening. This is
Yeah.
what this little tablet is. This is why Peter Parker Spider-Man is rolling around with the villain now. Um, but this is why Kingpin is rolling around in the city, giving orders to people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Remember, he's the mayor now.
yeah, you might want to catch people up with that, and because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people that are all of a sudden going to start picking up comic books, there's going to be a lot of new readers, right? Because
Right.
there's not a lot to do. Hey, I might as well go down to my local bookstore, my comic book shop, and pick up something to read. Right? So
The,
you might want to recap people on what's going on inside your universe.
the thing that gets me is and if I'm a retailer, I'm probably mad about this too. But it's like you're chomping at the bit for the last 10 weeks, hoping to open up and have new product to sell to your customers, and you get not only do you only get 5 books from Marvel, which is limiting you anyway, right? For income, then you're getting Spider-Man, and you're getting uh, what are some of the other books that we're going to talk about. I just think it's I think disappointing on a distribution level, and we haven't even talked about we're not going to talk about whatever DC is doing for and because I'm sure it's not even close to what Marvel has planned.
Right.
But yeah, if I'm a retailer, I'm a little disappointed in the kind of the quality of book that we're getting. And
Yeah.
like you said, if there's no variance, what are the hardcore fans coming in for, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
all right.
So
So
yeah,
what?
it's
So
a hard
so give me your
balance.
verdict on this book. You kind of dodged that.
Yeah, it is. It's an invisible woman, right? I'm not
Okay.
going to clobber it. It's not absolutely terrible. I anytime you add an animal like that, I know who it's for. It's for the kids. It's not
Right.
for me. There's no consequences. There's no real world consequences. There's nothing really real world going on. So it's for the kids. It's not for me. So it's an invisible woman. You don't have to pick this up if you don't want to. But if you really want to get the kids off your back and give them something new, go ahead and pick this up. But otherwise, don't even worry about it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, so let's move on. This is the kind of the book I want to talk to you about. Is the new Avengers book, Avengers number 33. It's actually a first part of a story, so you know what? We don't need a recap, right? Um, so we have Jason Aaron back in force with Javier Garon. I wish Johnny was here to pronounce that. Um, as the writer and the artist team. We have Jason Keith on colors, Corey Pettit on letters. We have a cover by Matteo Scalera and Rachel Rosenberg. And this one actually does have variant covers, so I'm sure we could talk about that. So you know this book is kind of like it drops you in and kind of catches you up a little bit with Moon Knight, and this is a first part, like what's it called, the Age of Khonshu, part one, and Moon Knight is here right on page one, um, and he runs into Iron Fist, and what I thought was going to be like a friendly little meeting between Moon Knight and Iron Fist turns into like a 10-page, half the comic book battle with And if you've ever read Iron Fist, the last about 10 years, that every time Iron Fist gets in a fight, they have to name all of his moves,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
which at first I thought was kind of cool, but now it just kind of takes away, like they show him throw a punch and it's like, okay, what did they call that one? And I think it's fun for the writer to kind of name every single move. Um, you know,
Eagle Claw, Fist Flurry, Fist Conchu. It's like
right, right.
okay. Well,
Um,
I think
but
yeah, I think they're following because I mean that is a trend in anime and manga, like where every time they throw a punch, there's a name for it.
right.
Like
So I'm not a huge fan of manga. So with this, you know, this kind of is it's like I said, 10 years ago in Iron Fist, it was kind of funny. Here, it's actually done for comedic purposes because by page 7 or 8 or something, it's just the fist of Khonshu every single panel, and basically Moon Knight just destroys Iron Fist and steals the fist, right?
yes, with the drunken mongoose one knuckle punch.
Yeah.
Those-
So I was reading that and I was like, what the heck just happened? Because there's no way Moon Knight should be able to defeat Iron Fist, not even on a good day, right? And the cool thing that you see is like there's actually a one panel page where the moon is huge behind Moon Knight. And so I think Javier Garrón did a really good job in kind of setting the
Absolutely.
stage for that. And before you even find out, right? Um, but then uh, they show him just beat the ever loving piss out of Doctor Strange, and then beat he steals Ghost Rider's car.
Yep. That was hilarious. Like, wait, what?
Yep. And then they show him he has like this kind of standoff with Black Panther, and you can see the moon is huge in the background in the panel there too. But then you find out so Khonshu is kind of fueling Moon Knight and giving him all this power, and now and Khonshu's ability with the super moon has more power than usual, so he's funneling all of his power through Mark Spector in order to gather, and he's gathering all of their powers, Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, and then he beats the crap out of Thor, which
Oh,
we're gonna talk about that in a minute because I had
yeah.
a huge
Mhm.
problem with that.
Okay.
Um, but he's collecting their power in different ankhs that he's wearing around his neck, and I mean the book ends with a Moon Knight standing on the moon with Khonshu, uh, and just kind of saying, that now we can save the world, right? So,
Yep.
and he's going to against the Earth's last hope against the devil, which made me groan a little bit because Mephisto has been all over this book, which means
Mephisto has been locked up with Ghost Rider. So
yeah,
where's
well
the
he's
Mephisto?
Mephisto's been kind of playing a Loki, like when Loki gets locked up, he's got like other body version doubles kind of running around. He's Mephisto's doing the same thing. Mephisto's locked up in Las Vegas, but he's also he can also kind of run around time and like do different time versions of himself, which is what every time we've seen Mephisto in another book like Avengers, that's his powers kind of circumventing the fact that he's in jail.
Yeah.
Um, but the uh, the thing, the kind of MacGuffin I want to say for the battle with Thor is the reveal that Mjolnir, the mystic hammer made out of Uru, as you find out that Uru is actually a stone from the first orb of the night, which would be the first moon. And
Hmm.
so the hammer is made of moon rock, which kind of gives Moon Knight apparently the ability to control Mjolnir, which he uses to beat the crap out of Thor and steal whatever power he needs. He actually stole Mjolnir. If you see on the last page, Moon Knight actually has the hammer. Um, First of all, my problem with this is it's again, I have a problem with editing and whatever's going on in Thor's book. Thor is not the god of thunder anymore. Thor is the All Father. Thor took
Hmm.
over from Odin and now
Right.
has the gigantic cosmic power, and the fact that he's actually, a herald of Galactus now. Like,
Yes. Yep.
what the heck?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there
Yeah.
is, even with the power of Khonshu behind him, Thor is now the god of all gods, really. There's no way Moon Knight should have been able to take Thor out that easily. So I'm hoping that there's kind of that they go back and say this again, but this is where I think where Jason Aaron and this Avengers book kind of exists in a vacuum, you know. Um, and my other problem with the book, and it's just minor, but there's the when they go to Wakanda, and the first thing out of his mouth is I guess Wakanda's talking to Captain America. He says, "Steven, I know he's already there." I thought he was talking to Doctor Strange
Yeah.
because first
Yeah. The
because
cuts
Doctor
were too
Strange just got
quick,
the
man. Like cuts were all over the place. Like I don't know where we
yeah.
are, what happened. Yeah. So
Yeah, if you
yeah.
didn't, I didn't find out through my second read through that he was actually talking to Captain America, because Captain America is not even in the book. Captain America only appears via the phone, like Black Panther's like talking to him on the phone or something, and he's not in the book. But when he said Steven, I assumed it was Doctor Strange because he just got the piss beat out of him 2 pages ago. So I was like, oh, okay, so it's actually the Avengers. Captain America is moving the pieces around, but you don't see him. So, I guess my verdict on this book is that it's interesting, which I think we haven't really seen in Avengers in a while. I like the idea of Moon Knight getting all this cosmic power because the moon's bigger, so he's more powerful. I don't know. I don't know if they've ever actually done that before.
Right.
Um, but to have Moon Knight just attack his allies in the Avengers instead of coming and asking them for help. I just
Right.
don't understand that part of it. Um, and they don't really get into Moon Knight's split personalities. They mention them, and then they kind of at the end of the book, the last page where he says, "I'm Mark Spector, I'm Jake Lockley, I'm Stephen Grant." I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so I guess they're recognizing the different personalities. And also, if you look at, like, every time he fights one of the Avengers, he's in a different costume.
Yeah.
So that makes me think that they split the personalities have split to different Moon Knight variations, and that, like, maybe all this is happening at once. Um, so I mean, it's definitely bringing me back for part two. I'm not gonna flame on this book because of the problems I had with it, but it's definitely a bit of a stretch. It's not a clobber, which I've been clobbering Avengers for months now, but this is actually this is a good story as long as they can keep away. You know, my only problem with this is it's not an Avengers book; it's a Moon Knight book. There's no Avengers in this book other than when they're getting the crap beat out of them. Ghost Rider's in one page, Thor's in one page, and Black Panther's in one page. There's no other Avengers in this book at all. So anyway, Lucas, give me your opinion on this book.
So I will say this over and over and over again until somebody gets it. I hate it when superheroes are fighting other superheroes. I hate it.
Preach.
It's been done over and over again. This is how much it's been done, right? Just maybe a couple months ago, you just had Carol Danvers
Yep.
doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
She was beating down Captain America. She was beating down Thor. She beat the crap out of Thor.
Hmm.
She didn't go to him and say, "Hey, what can I need some help? Can you do this?" No, she just went and beat the heck out of him.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
at least wait another year till you went along the same storyline, right? Of or starting a storyline the same way. This is superheroes. This is like black on black violence. This is superhero on superhero violence. Come on, you gotta stop. We gotta get our act together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree that the Knights of Khonshu or whatever this is, the Age of Khonshu, this could be an interesting storyline. It's just that the way they started it, I'm
Yep.
not feeling it right now. I don't. you're freaking turning me off. Like, um,
Well, I think what he wanted to do was kind of show you how Moon Knight, how he's leveled up Moon Knight. You know, like that's the only reason they did it was to say, hey, Moon Knight's a badass now. And you know what? I'm sorry, I thought Moon Knight was a badass before. You know, you know, I
you
like
did.
Moon Knight the way he was, and show me Moon Knight, uh, having some mental crisis, or you know what, if the super moon in Khonshu gives Moon Knight all this extra power, show me how crazy it makes him,
Yep.
create another personality for him, you know
Yep.
that
Absolutely.
is this like this like maybe his fifth personality is this godlike personality. So well, like why do you have to have him just destroy the Avengers to save them, so to speak?
So the other thing that I have a problem with is, so Black Panther, he just walks out, turns himself over to him and says, "Hey, by the way, Captain America, you got the Avengers." Hold up, wait a minute. Now, I thought
Yep.
the biggest part of the reason why Black Panther was ahead of the Avengers is because you can't have Steve, who is a felon, as ahead of the Avengers, right? So why are you the leader? Freaking turn. Why is it Captain America that's not the leader? Why wouldn't you have his butt go out there and fight? Why wouldn't he? Right?
Yeah.
You got, and I know there's 20 other Avengers, right? I mean, there's at least West Coast Avengers, East Coast Avengers, hey, freaking Iowa Avengers. Call those dudes up. Say, hey, we've got 700 mummies out here. Can you help a brother out? We'll fly the Tony Stark jet out there and come pick you guys up, but I need some help, right? Um,
Yeah.
just logistical issues on alongside of a really good idea is where I had the problem. Like you said, I'm coming back for more, and that whole now and like you were saying, now you're saying Moon Knight can control Millionaire. That's
Yeah.
huge, and they just threw it. They just threw it in here. Oh, by the way, yeah, Moon Knight can control. Not he can just pick it up.
No, he's not
He
touching it at all. He's controlling it with his mind, which is even
exactly.
worse.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. Wait, what?
Yep.
Because that takes him out of just being as strong as Thor. No, that makes him at the power, like you were saying, of an All Father.
Yep.
When you can just control the way stuff just moves around, now you're an All Father. That's where Moon Knight is at right now, right?
Well, that's
And
and
then
that's the thing is if they're gonna have a fight, so what it should be Khonshu against Thor, not the avatar of Khonshu
hmm
versus the All Father, and that's where I kind of think that this Avengers book is happening in a vacuum, because in this book Thor's not the All Father, right? He can't be.
um, and then it says Earth's last hope against the devil. It doesn't. Now we were talking about Mephisto earlier, but the thing is, if this Noshu is an Egyptian god, right? The Egyptians had their own devil, right? So is this going to be an Egyptian devil? I don't know. They need to clarify that. And once again, I'll be back for issue number 2 to see what's going on with that. But they needed to clarify that and clarify what's going on with that. Um, but yeah, so many technical issues and story and narrative issues alongside of a great possibly great freaking story. But I am glad to see Moon Knight make it to the Avengers book. So you
Yeah.
got me, doing my morning exercise of shrugging my shoulders all day long right now. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on, but hey, I'm
Well,
here. I'm here right
that's
now.
and I guess that's been my overall issue with Jason Aaron's run on Avengers, is the Avengers aren't the main characters in any of these books. The Avengers are just kind of the reactive force of whatever Jason Aaron feels like he wants to do. He wants to have a Squadron Supreme book. He wants to have Namor taking over the world book. He wants to have a Star Brand book, but he doesn't want to have an Avengers book. So that's a thing that kind of bugs me, is the Avengers aren't even characters in their own book, and now it's a Moon Knight book. So that's my biggest problem, is I think, Jason Aaron, this book shouldn't be called Avengers. It should be called The Marvel Universe, written by Jason Aaron's, and the Avengers kind of show up every once in a while. But you know what? The Fantastic Four shows up every once in a while too. And it's not the Fantastic Four book. So anyhow,
it's a stretch for me. It's the best stretch I've ever read.
it
is the best stretch I've ever read.
Yes. And it says, if this was a Moon Knight book, I would be 100% flaming on this book. Right?
Absolutely.
I would be 100% on board. This is a great Moon Knight story. But when was the last time Moon Knight was actually an Avenger? Was back in Steve Englehart's run of West Coast Avengers in 1987.
Jeez.
Right?
Wow.
So what the heck? Anyhow. All right. So let's take a quick break, and we will be back in a few minutes to talk about the last couple of books here.
RenderForce.com.
And we're back. Lucas, how was your break?
Man, did a couple of push-ups, some jumping jacks. Nah, I didn't. I'm too drunk for that.
All right. The morning drunk. That's great.
Hey.
Let's jump into the Marauders. And so this is the first X book back from quarantine, and we have issue 10 of the Marauders. Why don't you take over this book and tell me what the heck is going on in here?
Yep. Written by Jerry Dugan, art by Stefano Casilli, color art done by Edgar Delgado, and letter by Corey Petit. There's a few things that caught my eye in here. And of course, number one thing that caught my eye on here is that on Krakoa, they're making their own whiskey. I think that was freaking awesome. they're using the speed. I forget who it was.
Tempo.
Tempo.
Who the heck is Tempo, by the way? She looks like Aztec from DC.
Yeah, you know what? I should have did some research to see like what her first appearance was, but they're using her speed or whatever to speed up the caskets in order to make their whiskey age 50 years in one day. That was freaking awesome, right? And it's got a hint
kind
of
of
apple and
superpower
cinnamon.
Lucas would have.
Exactly. That's all you need, right? They don't forget all the rest of the other money making schemes they got, man. If they can do that and just keep cranking it out, guess what? They're gonna make some good stuff, man. They're gonna make some good money. Number two is this is a little bit more serious. Krakoa has just declared war on Madripoor, Russia, Brazil, and the Burundi government. Like out of nowhere, right? So once again, we've been out of the loop and out of reading for how many weeks, and in the first book back, we're in the middle of a war.
Yep.
Full on incident, full on. Hey, bam! Hey, we're going to war. Hey, something happens. Hey, let's go to war. What?
Yep. Welcome to your no recap issue.
Excuse me? Huh? Number three is the Russians. They built a freighter that serves as a factory that's building Russian weapons, and one of those weapons that they're building um, can hamper and impede mutant powers. And they got the plans from Forge. So Forge apparently was working for the government at one time, and he says, "Oh yeah, I thought I ripped it up," except for the dude that has the photographic memory. Maybe, okay, whatever.
That was
So
convenient.
yeah, that's convenient. Like, wait, what? Um, so in the meantime, they're going to war with Storm, Iceman, Forge, Pyro's in there, Bishop, Emma Frost. Of course, you got to have Emma Frost in there for 60 times because that's a part of her powers, right? Um, there are some great comments. There are some great quotes in this book. Number one, um, I know you're ready to die, but are you ready to die one piece at a time? That's a great comment, right? Um, let's see. How were you able to do? How were you able to control so many people at one time? Well, it's easy to control monkeys when they all have the same thoughts, right? Um,
That was okay. Yeah, we'll get into
yeah,
that.
because I don't want to give too much away about this book because there's not really too much in it except for like those big three that I already talked about. Um, uh, but however, I guess at the end, the biggest thing is that in the meantime, this book does give some indications that not everybody can be resurrected, right? Which now puts a cap on limitations of what they can do. Like, yeah, everybody can die. At first, we thought that everybody can come back, but now apparently not because they're trying to bring this one back. Now, I'll leave it to you if you want. If we can go ahead and spoil that, but
Hmm.
that was a pretty interesting thing to me.
Yeah, well, I'm totally gonna spoil that part because, um, it's been a couple of months, the last couple of issues when they killed off Kitty Pryde. Um, Now, if you remember in the first couple of issues of Marauders, we found out that Kitty could not go through the portals, and that was one of the first kind of red flags to me was, wow, if the portals can only be used by mutants and Kitty can't use it, then does that mean she's not a mutant, right? And that was something that was kind of in the back of my head. And then of course, they killed her off, and now you find out that they can't resurrect her, right? So I'm sitting there going, does this have something to do when she died before? Because she died a few times. I mean, because she's an X-Man, right? Now
Right.
she died. I think in Astonishing X-Men back like 15 years ago when she just kind of ghosted in space and or they sent her, they rocketed her in space and she had no control over her phasing ability, but she was dead supposedly, and they brought her back. So that makes me wonder as if they when from one of the previous times they brought her back, if maybe she wasn't a mutant anymore or something weird like that. But apparently she's not a mutant anymore because they already established that when she couldn't go through the portal in the first issue,
Right.
and then now, of course, she can't resurrect her. So there's something going on with her physically. And I guess we'll find out. Maybe this is one of the more interesting storylines that the Marauders or even Jonathan Hickman's X-Men run is is doing, especially with this whole resurrection thing. And that's something that I've had a problem with since day one. Is nothing. There's no stakes.
Yeah.
now there's stakes. So
Yep.
maybe if they could expand on that a little bit, we'll see. Though the this this issue, like I said, yeah, jumping in, it's like, what the heck? First they're making whiskey and then they're at war with three different countries. um, Now the Forge's power gun is a huge callback from Claremont's run from 30 plus years ago when Forge created that gun to take out Rogue when uh, when Rogue had just recently joined the X-Men. She's still wanted by the government, and Forge was working for the government and created a power neutralizer gun and was going to shoot it at Rogue. Well, Forge wasn't. It was Val Cooper, I think, or Henry Gyrich or something like that. But Storm got in the way, and Storm got shot. And if you remember, Storm had a long run in the X-Men comics where she didn't have powers.
Yes.
That was because she got shot by Forge's gun, and then they had that huge love story between Forge and Storm. So this is kind of a shout out to that storyline from 30 something years ago. But right, so this guy has a photographic memory and can rebuild the gun from scratch. And not only that, but like what are they mounted as, like a fucking howitzer cannon on the fucking ship, something like that.
Yeah.
We could shoot all the mutants and depower them. The one thing that bugs me is this when they do the introduction of the lineup of the mutants that are in here. Like, there's too many characters in this book that I'm supposed to keep track of, and some of them I don't even know. Tempo, I've never heard of before, but apparently she can make whiskey, and that's great. You know, it's a great use of her powers to speed up and slow down time, and it'll kind of fast forward because she can fast forward your whiskey. I would probably find something better for her to do.
Exactly. Right.
But hey, if you can make really great alcohol, that's awesome. Christian Frost, I know that they introduced him before. Is he Emma's brother or what? I know that he's like in a relationship with Iceman, right?
Is he? Is he? I mean, because Iceman is married to somebody, so
No, oh yeah, that's right. Why did I? So okay, so oh no, is he in a relationship with Pyro? I don't know. Anyway, I guess that's neither here nor there. Christian Frost, I think he just kind of they just kind of introduced him, but I don't remember seeing him in anything else. But I don't know what his relationship with anything is. There's Emma Frost and then there's Christian Frost, which makes me think that he's her brother or something. But they haven't really kind of got into it, as far as I
hmm,
know, right?
right,
So
right. So
yeah, but I
it's
don't.
like,
But
yeah, it's every week they're throwing in some characters that I don't remember or I haven't heard of, or they've got some weird history, and they're just there, right?
yeah,
And you're
well, it's
just
one of
like
like,
just shrugging
oh
your
man,
shoulders, like,
that character died like 40 years ago in a comic book, and now they're back. But then that, of course, that makes you wonder where other characters are. Like, how come they haven't brought back Thunderbird? You know,
mm,
if he was like the original one of the original new X-Men, how come they don't bring him back? Where's like a Mimic or other mutants that you think that they might bring back first? So,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, so
I don't know.
obviously that committee, that red, white, and black, and whatever committee, they sit around deciding which mutants to bring back and which ones not to bring back, and that's basically their whole thing. So, and it all depends on what the plan of the day is. So, if the plan of the day is to go to war, hey, you're coming back. If the plan of the day is just to make whiskey, guess what? You're coming back. And if your time isn't up
Yeah.
here, you're not coming back. You can go ahead and just sleep and rest for a while. So.
My other problem with this book is that you have Gold Balls, who is now called Egg. So he's got two strikes on him as worst name ever in the history of mutants. Um, they need to workshop that again and get him a third name that might stick. But I mean, you can't continue to call him Egg, right?
Might as well.
I don't know.
Might as well. Hey, it's easy to remember. I mean, you're not gonna have kids running out to the store to go buy the egg toy. So it just doesn't roll off the tongue. Who's your favorite Marvel character? Egg. Like no. Like what?
No,
No.
no, no. He can't be. So anyway, as far as my how I think about this issue, it is kind of like it's a bit of a stretch for me because I don't know uh, the whole scene where Emma undoes her blouse and then mind controls them because they were all Emma's more powerful than that. Emma doesn't need to kind of undo her blouse and so that they're all staring at her boobs. I can guarantee you they're all staring at your boobs anyway. I mean, look at what you're
Exactly.
wearing. You don't have to undo the button. It was just, it was an excuse to you know, let Stefano Caselli draw a girl with her blouse open.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, I'm not complaining because it was a great artistic piece. Um, but anyway, the story's a bit of a stretch for me because first of all, there's not really a whole lot of recap because you can't I can't remember what happened in the last issue of Marauders, and then there's too many characters to keep track of, and uh, then I find I thought they didn't allow humans on Krakoa, and
Right.
and they bring this guy Dan Molina, who is the photographic memory guy. That's not a mutant power, guys. So it's they show him on the beach with Forge, and then they kind of put this guy in like witness protection or something, and he ends up on a golf course in Arizona with the Morlock known as Mask, which makes me wonder: is this where they put the mutants that they don't want on Krakoa? They put them in a retirement community in Rio Verde.
Well, I guess so, right?
That's
Well, I mean, there's so far that's the only two that I've seen, right? Is Mask and this dude, and I mean, because they got to do something with them. They can't let them just run free, right? So the other governments can grab them up and rebuild the stuff, right? And they can't kill them because that's against the mutant rules. So they got to do something with them. Why Arizona was Rio Verde one of the portals, or was it just this place that they have right now?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
even.
I assume there's portals everywhere. So if someone wants to say, I mean, and they say Rio Verde, Arizona for the Krakoan retirement plan. That's what Ford says. So I'm sitting there going, okay, so that's probably where they put the people that they don't want on Krakoa, right? Uh,
Yeah,
so I don't know. I guess in the retirement community you don't have to be a mutant, but I imagine it's
yeah,
probably still tied to Krakoa, which makes me think I don't. It's kind of like a easy way out, but I don't know. And let me just say one last thing. The text pages they've run their course. Take them out. Give me 2 extra pages of art.
sure.
So
Yeah, I mean, we got letters from Kirk to I forget who it was to
okay,
Kitty Pride.
yeah,
Right?
and then a
I didn't
return
even read them.
letter.
I didn't even read them. I read the
Nobody's.
first paragraph, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm done.
Yeah,
Let me
I
go on
don't.
to the next thing.
They don't add to the story at all. So it's run their course. I think they're trying to do is I don't know, give the artist a break so maybe they can get the books out faster. But these text pages, I like them in the Powers of X and in the other one because they were actually adding to the story and explaining these new concepts that Hickman was having. But now with other writers on board with this plan, that they're just it's filler, and I would much rather have 2 pages of art than 2 pages of text.
Yeah.
So get rid of them. But other than that, so this book is a bit of a stretch for me. I would much rather have the X-Men come back with an actual X-Men book and not like this satellite book.
Right.
So,
So
uh,
for me, so go ahead. Go ahead, man.
no,
Go
no, no,
ahead.
no. I was done. So,
So let me rewind back to where I thought this book was at, right?
mhm.
When this book first started out, Marauders was about the boat, right? Because not everybody was going to be able to get through the portals and everything. So Emma Frost had this boat that was going to be able to ferry everybody around, right? I don't quite remember where the boat is or where it maybe it got blown up or something like that, but that's
Yep.
probably what happened, right? So now what's happening is that they're just flying everywhere, right? Um, so why didn't they just do that in the first place? Just take that big old plane that they got and just fly people to where they got to go. Because
Yeah.
now there's no ship. So because Marauders is ship. Marauders is people that invade a ship.
Yeah. They were like pirates. Kind of was like a pirate book.
All right. The other thing is that the Russians, they've got this new suit. I think that's the first appearance of that type of suit. The way it looks, that was a pretty interesting thing, and people love that type of stuff. And then I've got to go back and Bishop. Bishop has a new costume. Um, I'm used to him in the blue and yellow, but now he's in a red spandex deal, kind of nut hugging. Um, it was very low key. Um, I don't know why he came out in red, but that's what it is. Looks good. It's just that it was a little shocking because now he's got the red costume and then he's got the red bandana. Like if you're going to do, especially, but I mean, if you're going to do ops, special ops thing, normal thing is either green or blue or even black, but he's just all in bright red. So I don't know how you're sneaking around to do this attacking maneuver drenched out in red. But hey, y'all go ahead and do y'all. So for me, yeah, it's stretch. It's still interesting to what's going on. There was, like I said, there was those points where it's like, okay, hey, they're going to war. There's people out there with these weapons. So remember, they just hit the freaking Russian ship. Russia, they always share their knowledge with other countries. So that means that there might be two or three other freaking ships out there that has this weapon out there. So that might be an interesting to think about. And then the other point, of course, is them not being bringing Kitty Pryde back. So once
Right.
again, this is another book that was a stretch in its technical narrative, but it's not the worst one. It's just okay. Let me see what's going on because I don't understand what's going on right now.
Yeah. It's those ones when they kind of drop you in the middle of a storyline and you need to play catch up. So.
I think they need to catch up on their own stories as well. But I digress.
All right, so let's jump into our last review today. We're gonna do Venom number 25, uh, and take it away. This is Venom's your baby, I think. I think you love you some Venom. So
Well, it's not that I love me some Venom. I mean, I don't hate Venom. It's just that there's a lot of interesting things going on right now. Um, so for what this book is it's the last one of this particular volume, right? So what they start us off with is Eddie Brock. He's delivering a soliloquy, which is more like a recap of everything that's been happening in this volume so far, right?
yep.
So, he's got this new son that he's never heard of before. The son is out there. Plus, there was the Carnage War. There was the Null, the God of Null. That's all of a sudden a thing right now. Um, and then he went away to an island. Um, the son came to pick him up because he was in danger. The son actually fought Carnage, which is crazy, right? Because they didn't know he had powers before, but now he's got powers. He turned himself to a Tyrant T-Rex and then beat the crap out of Carnage. Okay, what? All right. Um, but the most interesting thing was so there was actually two stories to that. There was that whole thing, and then there was the second story was about him just chilling on the island on what's called Venom Island. A bunch of gangsters that showed up to the island to hide some stuff, and then one of the one of the guys kills the other guys. So Venom feels the need to defend the other guy or get vengeance on the other guy. So he calls himself vengeance for some reason, and then he starts freaking going crazy and killing everybody. And then a big fire happens, and then that's whatever. So I finished that up, and I was like, wait, what? What? And the reason why that kind of puzzled me is because there were 16 covers for this book.
Really?
16, and there was I was like, wait, there wasn't really any new characters in this book that warranted it, but there was 16, and that's really even for a um last issue of a run or of a volume to have 16 doggone covers. Maybe he had like two or three 16s. I was like scratching my head. I'm even looking at the covers. Doesn't look like there was anything that was particularly interesting. But then I went back, and then there was a little panel where it opens up, and Eddie Brock's actually talking to the Avengers, right? So he's talking to Captain America, She-Hulk, Iron Man, whatever, and Captain Marvel, and they're asking him about Null, right? And he says, "Well, I can't really explain it, right?" And he doesn't really explain anything, but there's a two-page spread where they kind of show us what he's trying to explain, right? And I was like, and all I see, right, and all I see is a bunch of Venom stuff running around, and I see Null, and I'm like, what? That's it's still nothing. But then I looked a little closer, and then when I start to realize is that what I thought was Null was something else, right? So what you had is, let's see if I can. You've got the first appearance of the War Machine Venom suit, right? That's one thing, right? Then you've got the Maker, who's standing in front of a portal, right? I'm not sure where the portal goes, but I think it goes to this thing called the esoteric latitude, and I'll get to that a little bit. Then you've got Kane the Conqueror, who was being taken over by, I'm not sure if it was Venom or whether it was Exelon or maybe it was this other thing called the Phalanx. Phalanx is very important because it's actually being playing pretty big inside of the X-Men universe right now, right? And this is where like all this stuff is eventually going to show up, like the whole Iron Man 2020 and X-Men. That's where this stuff is supposed to all eventually lead to.
Hmm.
And then what I thought was null is this Kree called the Nameless. Remember that? So remember that's
Ah,
why I called
yes.
it. Yes, Nameless. It's Kree called the Nameless, who is also called the Wraith, or he was originally born Zach Dell, right? So that's 46 pages of whatever just to get to this two-page spread where all the really good information was. That's why the 16 covers. So one of the covers was actually had that. It's a Greg Horn cover. You can only buy it through a particular store, and it's got Venom, but I don't know who's inside of it. I don't know whether it's Punisher that's inside this thing with the Venom thing, or whether it's Eddie Brock and he just somehow got the War Machine suit. Don't know. It's not explained. We won't know till issue number 26, I believe. It's either 26 or 27 where this might show up.
Hmm.
And then I talked about the excellence. So here's the deal, right? And this is what's coming. Um, and actually, let me roll back of let me explain to everybody what's going on with Null, who Null is. So what we've discovered through this volume is that Venom, the parasite of Venom, is part of a bigger species, right? That species is ruled by a god who's been sleeping for the last million years, right? It turned out that Null at some point actually built this other species, or maybe it's the same species, kind of move, kind of uh, same way, called the Exxon. Now, the Exxon, they're this parasitic entity made of living darkness, created by Null. They feed on immortal souls of living beings. They reside in an area space called the esoteric latitude. At one point, a lost group of Kree explorers they stumbled into this region space, and they were attacked by the Exxon, which invaded their bodies and consumed their immortal souls. And it was because of this bounding that the Krees became the Nameless. The Nameless is what's in that two page spread, not
Hmm.
necessarily the Venom. It's the Exxon. It's Nameless, right? And what's strange from their souls, the host lost all sense of time and all sentience. And at one point, um, a little boy who was running from the Kree because the Kree killed his father and mother. He was running from them, so he accidentally ended up in this esoteric existence with the Nameless. The Nameless started attacking him, but instead of being able to kill him, he actually became part of the Nameless, and that boy is now the, he is the Nameless one, right? And um, who is also the Wraith. So there's a big guy standing there. That guy is probably is the Wraith, and what's interesting, and once again, this is Donny Cates. Donny Cates is right now he's hot for making old stories new, like old issues new. So for our listeners right now, if you're into buying old stuff or buying any type of speculation, I need you to listen to me right now, right? Right now, within the last year, the hot book was Thor: God of Thunder #6. That was from 2013, and the reason why that was hot is because they realized that that was actually the first appearance of Null. Right? Well, here's what's happening right now. Now that this Wraith is the thing, because once you go back to the first appearance of Wraith, first appearance of Wraith was Annihilation Conquest Prologue #0. He was had a cameo in there, but his first appearance was in Annihilation Conquest Wraith #1. Right, so that was pretty interesting. Then they kind of go into what's going on with him, and then in Annihilation Conquest #2, or Conquest Wraith #2, that's when they start explaining what's going on with the Nameless, and the Nameless one, and then they actually talks about the leader of the Nameless. The leader of the Nameless would be Null. So actually, that would be the first time he's actually mentioned, and they actually show this guy fighting the leader of the Nameless. So that's actually him fighting Null, right? And then what's actually interesting is this was in 2007. So if that's him fighting Null, that would be the first appearance of Null all the way back in 2007, instead of what everybody's been grappling up, which is Thor: God of Thunder #6. So
That's interesting.
yes, so people need to pay attention to that, um, see what's going on. And I was like, huh. And apparently I'm not the only one that's picked up on that, because Wraith #1 and Wraith #2, which were $3 books last week, are now $50 to $60 books right now. So people are picking up on that, and that's why I haven't slept, because I was doing my research on this, and I was like, oh, let me do it once again, my inebriated buys, and sure enough, came across it.
Nice.
So here's the books that people need to pay attention to. I feel, once again, Thor: God of Thunder #6. That's already a $50 to $6 book. Um, Annihilation Conquest Prologue, Annihilation Conquest Wraith #1, Annihilation Conquest Wraith #2, Uncanny X-Men #305. That's the first appearance of the Phalanx, right? Um,
Okay.
I don't understand why that hasn't picked up, because the Phalanx is all over the place right now. And House of X, that's a big thing. There, even in Arnold Stark, when he's having those big dreams, that's the Phalanx right there. He's having a dream of the Phalanx coming to Earth and taking over the Earth. So the Phalanx is playing a big part this year in the whole Marvel universe. So I don't understand why people haven't picked up on that right now. So that's Uncanny X-Men #305, and then the other one would be Fantastic Four #19. That is the first appearance of Ramatut, who is King the Conqueror. Right? That's not the first appearance of King the Conqueror. I forget what was it. Avengers #8. Yeah, I think his
Yeah.
first appearance was Avengers #8. It's not that cheap. You're gonna have to fucking spend some money to get a good copy. But Fantastic Four #19, that was actually his first appearance. You might want to think about it.
Hmm.
So while I droned on, I'm not gonna go to the covers right now. I'll wait till you give your opinion of what you thought about the book, and then I'll drip everybody into it. Go ahead, man.
All right, so let's shout out Donnie Cates as the writer, Mark Bagley is the artist on this book. Um, Mark Bagley, who's like the original Venom artist, right? Or one of no McFarlane, but anyway, um, Cates, Bagley, Andy Owens is the inker, Frank Martin color artist, and Clayton Cowles is the letterer. Um, this book is how you need to come back from quarantine. This book is a recap book. Uh, it has basically it's Eddie explaining to you the Avengers the events of his life for the last 25 issues, which is awesome, especially if you haven't been reading Venom, this is a great. I mean, it's the last part of a story, but it's also a great jumping on point because it explains everything that's happened before.
Yep.
So to me, it was like okay, and even some of the stuff that I wasn't quite clear with, which you did a great job about explaining with Null, and then explaining about what's to come. This is the perfect book to kind of get to really kind of understand where Eddie Brock's place is in the Marvel Universe right now at this moment. And you can, take away that double page spread of Carnage fighting a Venom Tyrannosaurus Rex. Um, that was kind of a bit hokey, but the the basic premise of this book was good. It kind of catches you up with Eddie. It kind of sets that relationship's point with his son, um, to like going forward, where this book is going to go, where it's been, and where it is now. I thought it was really kind of a great. This is the book, the one book I didn't have a problem with reading. Why I might have a problem with the fact that Eddie has a son that within a couple of issues he's like super attached to. He's my life. Um, where like a few issues ago he didn't even know that they were related. Um, that to me seems a bit forced, but um, I love that kind of Carnage is still kind of like the big baddie in the background. Um, Null is that that force that he has to overcome. That doesn't look like he can do it right now. Um,
Right.
he had that, he lost his hand, kind of the Luke Skywalker thing going on. They didn't really get into. I can't remember what this the alien Venom that Dylan is with, the one
Yes.
that was a cat. They didn't
Right.
really do anything by explaining him. He's
Right.
there, but they don't kind of recap him. But um, having the Avengers in the last couple of pages, where that's who he's explaining it to. The only thing that was jarring to me was, I'm sorry, Eddie Brock looks exactly like Thor.
Yep. Hmm.
That kind of threw me a little bit. Um, but other than that, the great, I think the best thing in this whole book was the second story. We got a second story in this book, and it was just a backup, but it was a flashback, and they brought back David Michelinie and Ron Lim, and had them do a quick little 6-page story in the back, and it's a flashback story from when Eddie thought that he had finally killed Spider-Man and was living alone on the island. And I thought that was cool. It was a little kind of extra bang for your buck. Um, so it kind of gave you a real kind of rounded picture of Venom and Eddie. Um, if there's any book that's a flame on over the last couple of weeks, this is it. Um, I'll flame on this book and say get Venom. Um, I haven't liked all the stories that Donny Cates has written in this series, but this one was good. I liked it. It was a good wrap up to the storyline, and you know what it did? It felt like the last issue of the series, but I know we get Venom number 26 next month
Yep.
by Donny Cates, because I was like, this is either the last issue of Venom or it's the last issue of Donny's run, but it's not. So, but it kind of felt that way. So I enjoyed the book. I'm not a huge Venom fan, but I liked this book. So flame on.
Yeah, it's a flame on as for me as well. At least get a reader if you have at least a reader for it, get it. But like I said, there was 16 doggone covers. I'm not going to tell people which covers to get. In fact, I would say just get a reader and then try and pick up the other titles that I mentioned as cheap as you can. Doesn't matter whether it's unreadable copy. Just get those because I'm telling you that with the next couple months or the next year, those are going to be the books that are going to be hot and that people are going to be tearing themselves up over. So in the meantime, the covers we got covers by Ryan Steckman, Ron Lim, Mark Bagley, Dave Raposa, and already um, some of the stores are actually starting to run out of that Dave Raposa. So they're limiting it to 1-on-1. There's Mark Cicchetto. There's a blank black cover, which is weird. Usually I'm used to seeing white blank covers, but a blank black cover, that was interesting. Now there's a incentive cover by James Takoa. That's a 1 of 25. The Gerard Zafino variant cover. That's a 150. The Mark Bagley Hidden Gem wraparound cover. That one's about a 1 of 100. It's like, none of those were really great. But that Dave Raposa, that one that was a 1 of 100. There's actually a Virgin cover. That one's a 1 of 200, right? Um, that one's on sale. A lot of stores are actually selling it for like 170 bucks, 150 bucks. Should you get it? I would. It's a good looking cover. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think you should get it. Don't worry about it getting it. But once again, it all depends on how this whole story shakes out. So either get it and if you really like it, go ahead and get it. But if you're getting it for speculation cover, I wouldn't give it. Um, the one cover that has been moving is there's a 1 of 25 Funko variant pop cover. Um, it's about it's actually a 1 to 125. It's actually going for quite cheap at 50 bucks, but it's been moving. There's been 30 pieces moving within the last week in anticipation of when it's coming out. Also, one to keep an eye on is there, like I told you about the retailer summit pieces. There was no retail summit for it, so instead they're just letting the public get to it. That one's going for about 8 to 9 bucks right now. And once again, it's a good looking cover. It's actually just the cover A, but it's black and white. There's only 3,000 of these out there, so um, if you're a speculator, you might want to go ahead and get it. And in a few years, I guarantee you that'll be worth something. And then the other one, and this is just a store variant. Greg Horn has one that's out there. That's a direct store. I think it's like a Virgin that's at 40 bucks, and that one has that the War Machine Venom suit right there on the cover. So people might want to check that out. I'm already if you can't get one, you got to be careful because I think people are going to try to sell that for 100 to 200 bucks within the next year if you can't get it before it gets sold out. So once again, I love this thing as well. I can't flame it on enough. I am worried of that 1 to 200 cover. 200 bucks for a cover like that is just a little bit too much. But hey, it's Donny Cates. Um, you never know. You never know. So
Mm.
it is what it is.
All right, so that's going to wrap up this episode of No Prize Podcast. Clint, thanks for sticking with us. I know we ran a little late, but hey, we have new books, so we're going to talk about them. So we will be back in a couple of weeks, and until then, stay safe.
Adios.